Welcome to Duchenne Science Live, brought to you by Action Duchenne. As a charity, we'd normally be out all over the UK holding research workshops and research roadshows to bring the complex science of Duchenne to life for our families. With the country in lockdown, we can't do that at the moment, and so we've set up this YouTube channel to try and bring the science to your living rooms. My name's Neil.
And my name is Sid. And today we're going to be looking at the latest results from a gene therapy trial being conducted by Sarepta Therapeutics in the US. And they brought out a press release earlier this month. And we're going to be looking at what they said in that.
So the trial we're going to talk about today is called Study 102. It's a study Sarepta holding to look at the effectiveness of a gene therapy product called SRP-9001. So in Duchenne gene therapy, it's the idea that you could use a virus to deliver a smaller version of the dystrophin gene to the muscle, and the muscle cells might be able to use that to produce the dystrophin protein they're missing. So we already know that this gene therapy can produce the microdystrophin in the muscles. Sarepta published some data last year after 12 weeks. And now this is the data after kind of 48 weeks of this small clinical trial.
Okay, great. And in this trial, how many people are actually involved? Because we know that Duchenne is a rare condition, and having a number of participants in a trial. Remind me, what numbers are we talking?
So we're talking of 41 people in this trial. So small, even by kind of big Duchenne trial standards, but one of the bigger gene therapy trials that's underway. So a small trial, but an important trial.
Great. Okay, so we're almost at the year in now, and seeing what's happening with the participants. And we've had participants who are having the gene therapy, and others that are having placebo. So that, and that's completely at random, and nobody knows it's who's getting what. It's proceeding in that manner. And placebo is simply it's a non-active form of the therapy.
So. Yeah, exactly that. It's a very, very carefully matched thing. So, if somebody, not in this trial, but if you had a tablet that you were testing, you'd want a tablet that looked identical, tasted identical. The idea is that it should be as indistinguishable as possible from the treatment you're testing, because what you really want to know in a trial is whether your drug's working. And so you have to compare it with something as close as you possibly can.
Understood. Great. What's the crux of the press release? What are the results at 48 weeks? What is going on?
It's a good question. It's probably the important question.
Yes, that's why we're here.
so after 48 weeks, so we're talking about just about 1 year. So they found that the North Star score for the people who received the gene therapy increased more than the people that received a placebo.
All right. And the North Star score is a measure of function, of how people are functioning on particular specific points. So it's a way of comparing how things are going. So they would have done scores at the beginning of the trial, and now they're doing scores at time points as we go along. And
exactly.
So these are the scores at 48 weeks, which is, and I guess other types of scoring functionality are available, but this is a commonly used North Star assessment. Is that, yeah?
Yes, it's probably the most commonly used one at the moment in Duchenne. It all depends what your age group in the trial is. So here we're looking at 4 to 7 year olds. So you need something that suits the age group. So they're typically able to walk. And North Star, it's 17 different measures all collected together. So yeah, and actually there are other outcome measures being done in this trial, but they've only reported the North Star data so far. So that's all we can talk about. I'm sure in the fullness of time, we'll get a lot more data with a lot more measurements. But yeah, today, just North Star data.
Yeah. All right. So those participants that received the gene therapy are getting better scores on this North Star assessment 48 weeks in. That is the crux of the press release.
Yes, exactly. There is a but though, and there's often a but in research, as we both know.
Yes.
buts and caveats.
Yeah.
And the but in this press release or this study is that the p-value was 0.37.
Okay. All right. P-value. Well, what we want the p-value to be much smaller. Convention says below 0.05, but let's work out. So in terms of the p-value, we'll probably need to unpack that a bit, what that means.
Yes, I mean, the p-value, clinical trials generate an awful lot of data. You've got lots and lots of data points from each person, and trying to work out exactly what's happening is tricky, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so researchers use mathematical tests to try and say whether the differences they're seeing are real, whether those differences are actual differences, or whether it might just be the result of luck in the trial. And so that's exactly what a p-value is. It's a measure of the chance of getting this result or a result just by a fluke.
Mm-hmm.
And a p-value of 0.37, that means if you did this trial and got this result 100 times, on 37 of those occasions, that would just be by chance. Even if the gene therapy had no effect at all, you'd still see this result over a third of the time.
So when they're reporting, and they're reported in this press release, and they report in scientific papers, and you come across this time and time again, you'll have a p-value associated with any kind of conclusion about the results, about data. And here they're saying that we can't confidently say that these improvements are not just due to chance, or often enough. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. So what they're saying is they see a slight increase in the people who receive the gene therapy, but they can't say for sure that difference is real or that it's due to the gene therapy. I think that's where they're at the moment.
Okay. So in some senses, you might say, right, well, that's disappointing. However, they've also, as part of this press release, gone into that a bit, because, as you mentioned before, we've got the spread of ages of those participants in the trial between 4 and 7. And when they look at the age groups, so those between for those 4 and 5-year-olds and 6 and 7-year-olds, and look only at those data split by age, then they're actually finding significant change in the 4 to 5 age group. So the p-value associated with that is below that 0.05, the threshold. And that threshold is a universal sort of the accepted scientific threshold for your p-value. If your p-value is below that level, then you're looking at a real effect. That's
exactly.
It's statistically significant, and that's that phrase that comes again.
So it's important to say that they've only got 16 people in that age group. So now we're talking about an even smaller group, but they are seeing a real increase in that age group compared to placebo. And actually, what happened in the 6 to 7-year-olds is really interesting, isn't it?
That's not statistically a significant improvement. What's going on there? Is it because it's not working in 6 to 7-year-olds, or what's going on?
I think the short answer is we don't know. So what I think we do know is that something slightly odd happened. So at the start of a trial, when you recruit your people, you put them into the placebo group or the gene therapy group that we've talked of, and you do that process at random. So you don't want any humans involved in that process, because they might put people in a group to try and create the result they want to see. So it's all very carefully randomized. Think of it like flipping a coin and going into a heads or tails group, if you like. And what randomization does is it should distribute all the differences you see in a group across your two groups kind of equally. And the 4 to 5-year-old age group here, those two placebo and gene therapy groups, they look pretty similar at the start of the trial.
Yeah.
If you look at
they use the word baseline. They say they're starting from a similar baseline point, i.e. the score on the North Star is broadly similar for everyone in the placebo and everyone who's going to receive the gene therapy. And that's just
Exactly.
fallen that way. The randomization has done its job and it's spread everybody across the groups in a sort of in that fashion.
Exactly that. And then what seems to have happened in the 6 to 7 year olds is actually the randomization has spread people in a kind of non-even way. So we can actually illustrate this using a highly technological demonstration of a piece of paper and a pen. And so on this piece of paper, I've got 20 dots. And you can see I've got the North Star score for each dot, and they're spread across the axis. So some of these dots have a better score in the North Star assessment than others. And now if I'm going to randomize these dots into a clinical trial, I'm going to choose 10 dots to go into a placebo group, 10 into a treatment group. And so if I take a red pen here and start drawing circles around random dots, what you can see is that my 10 red dots, they've got a spread of the North Star scores. And so the other 10 also have a spread and they look about the same. Now, if I go to this second set of dots and choose a slightly different group, what you can see is actually my two groups are totally different. So in one group, I've got people or dots with a very high North Star score. In the other group, I've got dots with a much lower North Star score. And that seems to be what happened here in the clinical trial.
What was the baseline phrase? It was like there was an imbalance in the like.
It's a statistically significant imbalance.
Yeah. So the placebo group and the treatment group, the active treatment group, were somehow clustered quite far apart like this.
And actually, the problem when you start with baseline data like that, it makes it really, really hard to try and analyze the data at the end, because now you've got a significant difference at the start and you're looking for another difference at the end. So analyzing that data is much harder. But actually, in the press release, they said something interesting, that so this is a crossover trial, so that the next stage of the trial is that the people who receive placebo will receive the gene therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're hoping is when those people receive gene therapy, they might be able to kind of tease out these statistical challenges.
Yes. Okay. So, as you said very at the beginning of this part of the discussion, all we can say at this point is that for 6 to 7 year olds, we don't know, and there's a reason that the Sarepta have identified that, as you said, that might explain how we can't know, that it's obscured by a statistical not a statistical error, just a random effect that has been generated because of the distribution of the groups in the 6 to 7 year olds. But there's hope, and they're obviously continuing with it, and the crossover will perhaps help illuminate more of that. Yeah, we don't know, and we say that a lot in science, and that's important.
Absolutely. And actually, one thing that it's important for families to remember, that these are only the kind of interim results. This is not the full set of results from the trial. This is just a small selection of results. Mm-hmm. And they, as you say, they're continuing this trial. There's a whole other phase of the trial to go. This is only one gene therapy approach as well. So we know there's, several approaches being tested in the clinic. They're all slightly different, and the results of this trial don't affect those other trials. So I think it's important to view this for exactly what it is, that it's one part of one study.
And I think nothing came to light on the safety front that was unexpected or unusual. So that's also they make pains to point that out in the press release as well.
Yeah, and actually, for families, again, that's really important, because deciding, whether to take part in a clinical trial, it's a trade-off of the potential benefits and potential side effects, just like choosing whether to take a drug or not is a trade-off of benefits and side effects. So having good safety data, good information on the side effects helps families make those decisions and think more about the opportunities available to them.
Yes.
So we're going to be doing these shows regularly through lockdown. So if there's a paper you'd like us to look at, a paper you'd like us to talk about, somebody you'd like us to interview, let us know in the comment section below, and we'll do our best to bring it to you in a future show.
Yeah, great. For learning more about gene therapy broadly, you've done videos on that before, I think.
Yes, so if people want to know more about gene therapy, there's some videos on in our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch those. They're really short explanatory videos, so yeah, head over there to watch more about gene therapy.
Great. Nice.